see the cars on the circuit, and well, Graham, what do you make of this? It's not going to be an easy start, is it? This is so busy. It's like your worst nightmare on the M1, isn't it?
Very tricky indeed. We've got cars streaming down the back of the circuit, trying desperately to put some warmth into the tyres that are on, whichever ones they've chosen. I suggest there might be a mix of wets and intermediates out there. I don't think anyone would be brave or maybe foolish enough to try going for slicks at this point. If we get a dry line appearing, then things may change, and in one of the two mandatory pit stops that the cars have to take during this 2-hour duration race, then we may well see a change of tactics in terms of what tyres are on. But for the moment, they're all heading back to the start-finish line, and we'll see how they line up.
Well, yesterday, of course, when we had our GT3 race in similar conditions, there was talk of an extra sighting lap to give the drivers a chance to have a look at the circuit, but they're bunching up nicely now, and I don't believe that that's going to happen in this race. I think we're going straight to a start, and as Graham says, it's 2 hours. There will be 2 pit stops at least for driver changes, fuel and tyre changes if we're still on wets, as everybody seems to be. But in a moment or so, you'll see the Corvette pull off into the pit lane. There it goes. The pace car has pulled aside. The pole man is now in charge of the grid as they come around onto the start-finish straight. He's got the signal to start. Racing is now live for the first round of the FIA GT Championship here at a very wet Silverstone, and you can see Carl Wendlinger already having a look around, see if he can get past the Corvettes on the straight, but not to be. And it looks as though we're going to have a change of position in turn 1. Well, no, just stern order as they go down the hill and disappear into the fog. This is all we can see from our camera as they run down towards the
And it looks to me as though Christophe Bouchou's made that pass. Indeed he has. Christophe Bouchou into the lead ahead of Marcel Fessler, and Ryan Sharp makes, Carl Wendlinger makes his way past Sean Edwards in the G2 Celine, which might be expecting the G2 car a long way up the grid for its actual power and capability because of the changing conditions in qualifying yesterday.
And there is Bouchou on the left-hand side, just giving it up again as they go to the bottom of the circuit there. And
running very wide there, Marcel Fessler, just not quite getting the grip he was anticipating into Stowe Corner, and that gives Carl Wendlinger a little bit of chance to get down the inside into Vale. In fact, Wendlinger takes both the Corvettes in one swoop, coming down through the bottom of Vale and into Club Corner. It's an Aston Martin who leads. So Carl Wendlinger in the lead now from Christophe Bouchou, but Marcel Fessler doesn't think that's where he belongs in third place. He wants to be back up into second place at least, and first would be even better. Behind looks like another Aston in the gloom there. The Sean Edwards car still holding him off though. Now there it goes round the outside now, the 36. That's the car of Alex Muller joining Lucas Lichtenhoyer, the team car's owner this year. Sean Edwards now under threat from the number 6, the second of the 2 Phoenix cars, Mike Siemens.
Well, just up on the inside there, but it's just a question of time. Sean Edwards, let's remind everybody, qualified very well yesterday because he came out just on the very last of the dry bits of qualifying, and that's why that G2 car is right up there among the GT1s, and he will be giving up positions. He knew that before he got to the start line because the GT1s came out in the rain, and that just added 4 or 5 seconds to their lap times. So a very mixed grid, as we're saying. We were also saying watch out for Carl Wendlinger and Ryan Sharp in this Aston Martin because they are very good together, and they are very good in the rain, both of them. Carl Wendlinger especially, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that car stay out for as long as possible. As long as the fuel lasts, I think you'll see Carl Wendlinger stay out on track, and he should be the last to pit in GT1. On board with him now, and you can see how slippery it is. Look at him working that.
Yes, in these changing conditions, it'll be interesting to see if we can get the GT1 cars through the 2 hours on just one fuel replenishment. They have to make 2 stops, but if they only need to fuel in one of them, that may well be good. Down the hanger straight and into Stowe for the second time. Bouchou's already made his escape. Sean Edwards still staying racing, running very wide there. That's not good at all. That's the number 6 Corvette in the hands of Mike Siemens, who's having a bit of a torrid time there through Stowe, second time round. And the 2 Vitaphone Maseratis now coming into line astern. If the second one, that is Andrea Bertolini, can make his way past Siemens, then he'll be up right to the back of the Alexander Negrow driven number 2 car. The Vitaphone car's really struggling during qualifying yesterday.
And I think there's just a glimpse there of a GT2 Ferrari in that little group, but there certainly is. If you look back behind the yellow Corvette as he goes past the number 1 Maserati, and we're on board with that Maserati at the moment, and it's all getting very close shoulder to shoulder. Watch the speed of that car on the inside. Just went swooping past. Now, they had the wrong tyres on yesterday. We expect to see them look better today, but I was just looking to see... Oh, he's lost it again.
It's a back and forth tussle, yes, isn't it, between the Maserati and the Corvette. I think the leading Ferrari, although we might have expected it to be Rob Bell, it's actually Tony Vilander.
And I'll tell you why. Remember Tony Vilander at Mugello in the rain in a Maserati? He can drive in the wet, this man. Obviously Scandinavian, used to going sideways, it's not actually backwards a lot of the time. Absolutely in his element, and I think you're seeing that on the timing screen now.
Yep, Maserati crossing the line nose to tail with the Corvette, but the power of the Corvette able to keep the advantage through the long straight here down to Copse Corner for the 3rd time. And just looking through the screen, you can see there's a little bit of driver input on the wheel, but perhaps not as much as you might fear given the slippery conditions. The cars handle exceptionally well.
You're still feeling confident enough to ride it up over the curbs going through there, so I think they're quite happy with the grip. This is going to go on and on, isn't it? This
could be a race-long
thing, yes.
Challenge, and indeed, talking of challenges, we're back to the leading pair with Bouchou and Fessler looking at 2nd place, of course, because Carl Wendlinger's off. There he is, in fact, in the middle distance, as it were. Marcel Fessler threatened to take that place away from Christophe Bouchou, and now has, as they come through the Vale and down into Club Corner on lap 3.
Aston Martin from Corvette and Aston Martin, so the 2 Jet Alliance cars doing very nicely, thank you, in 1st place and in 4th place with Christophe Bouchou and Marcel Fessler, and you can see them there in reverse order there in the middle of the sandwich, and they are gradually easing away from everybody else. It's very small gaps 1st to 4th, and then there is a bit of a gap, so we're looking at the breakaway group here, split off from the rest of the field, and they are something like 8 or 9 seconds up the road. So it's going very nicely for them, and once you lose touch in these conditions, I think you lose touch, don't you?
Yes, and it'll be difficult for those drivers perhaps who haven't driven these cars before, although Alex Muller is holding on well in the 36 Jet Alliance Aston, number 36. The first of the slower cars is Andy Negrow, the Brazilian driver, coming into FIA GT racing for the first time this season and thoroughly enjoying himself, but of course he doesn't have the experience in the car.
Wendlinger, Fessler, Bouchou, Muller, Negrow is our first Maserati in 5th place, and then Sean Edwards is still clinging on to 6th in that G2 Celine. I saw the back end of that all over the place going through the complex, so he's obviously having a very busy afternoon.
Oddly enough, though, talking to Sean this morning as we look at GT2 leader Tony Vilander, talking to Sean in the pits this morning, he was saying that he was almost praying for it to stay wet because at least they had some chance of being in contention there. If it dried up, the car simply didn't have the grunt to make its way through the front of the field. But here is the GT2 leader now, Tony Vilander, wiper going, so enough moisture coming off the cars in front of him to require that.
And the car in front of him is in fact Sean Edwards.
Yep.
And this is a more relevant battle, shall we say. The G2 car is basically, it's a GT2 car that isn't built in sufficient numbers to be homologated as GT2, so they call it G2 and allow it to race, and it's roughly on a par with the GT2 cars, shall we say, and this is a very specific battle then between the leader of G2, Sean Edwards, and the leader of GT2, which is Tony Vilander, and then we go further down the field, as you've seen.
Yep, we were just looking for him there at Rob Bell, 2nd place in GT2, as our attention comes back to the head of the field, if you like, the top class, with Christophe Bouchou in 3rd place there, still managing to hold off Alex Muller. Christophe Bouchou moving across to race with the SRT, Seleslar Racing team, who were running some races in Citation Cup last year as well as National GT Championship, but they've moved up to the full FIA GT1 spec car this year, the C6R Corvette, and going very nicely it is too.
Well, yes it is. They have all now settled down. We're sort of 10 minutes into it here, and as we expect with this class of racing, you get a burst of excitement at the beginning of the race, and then everybody settles down. And remember, it is a 2-hour race. It won't end before 2 hours. There's a long way to go. There's a lot of racing to go. You can't win it in the first 10 minutes, but you can definitely chuck it away.
You certainly can, and people have. Happily not today, everybody being a little circumspect with the difficult conditions that face them. Spouch's car still looking a bit twitchy there as we come back to the head of the GT2 field. They, of course, a team not benefiting this year from the Motorola sponsorship, you'll see, as they had last time. They've vanished from the scene.
Well, Tony Villander has got past Sean Edwards, and you can see that. Maybe you can't see that in the fog there, because that is Sean Edwards now just ahead of the Gigawave Motorsport Aston Martin, and that's going to be a pass which we will miss when we come back after the break. Still leads this opening round of the FIA GT Championship for Aston Martin after 6 laps. Marcel Fessler is in second place. Christophe Bouchou, you can see there, has been involved in this battle between his black and white Corvette and the blue and white Aston Martin of Alex Muller virtually since the start of the second lap, and it looks like it's going to run and run, doesn't it?
Yeah, this looks like being an ongoing one, doesn't it? You've got strong driver pairings in both cars, and if the conditions don't improve any, then it's going to be mighty tough, hard work for these drivers all afternoon, because these cars are physical things to drive around. They're quite big, they're heavy, the acceleration and braking loads on the drivers are immense, and in these conditions it's 100% concentration, so it's draining in that direction as well as the physical effort involved.
Yes, we saw what happened yesterday when they went out in a qualifying session which turned wet almost as soon as they began it. And I think most people were on inters during that, but even then it was slippery, and we saw plenty of cars rotating on the infield, and there's really not a lot the drivers can do. They're caught out on the wrong tyres, then it's all over. And
Carl Wendlinger coming under pressure, renewed pressure from Marcel Fessler, who started the race, of course, from pole position. That Wendlinger got the jump on them all in the early part of the race, but now as things settle down in lap 6, 7 in fact now completed, so we're on to lap 8. Fessler's closed that gap down to just a couple of tenths. Looking round the inside at Copse, has he managed to keep the line tight? Well, he's right up on the bumper, but no way round there. Wendlinger shuts the door on him as they head off down towards the Beckett's and Maggots complex, and they'll out back onto the Hanger straight.
If you're sure that's where they are.
Oh yes, coming through Maggots in the gloom.
Yes, we just mentioned
much tighter line taken there by Fessler, and having to almost lift to avoid running into the back of Wendlinger's Aston. This is the race coming down the Hanger straight towards you, though from that shot, Richard, you wouldn't know, would you? But it is coming into Stowe Corner. Again, a tighter line taken by the Corvette. Is he able to make it stick this time? Looks as though he might. Just a dab of the brakes for prudence in the middle of the corner there. Car getting a little unsettled. Coming down through the Vale, still Wendlinger holds that position and takes the racing line instead of a defensive one, but makes it work for him. Back through down the Vale again into Club Corner, and if anything, Wendlinger just pulling out a little bit there. As you said earlier, Richard, a master in these wet conditions.
You are seeing a demonstration here from Carl Wendlinger, because all through the practice and qualifying sessions here at Silverstone, that Corvette has been faster than that Aston Martin. But now the tables are turned simply by the weather and the track conditions. Carl Wendlinger, as we ride with him under the bridge, is in his element here, and he is making this Aston Martin go faster than that Corvette, and it is that simple. And interestingly, I expect that Ryan Sharp will be able to pretty much match that, as we saw so many times last year. He is pretty much on a par with Carl when it comes to driving this car, particularly in the wet.
Absolutely, you can see Carl just tiptoeing there, having to correct the car as the power comes back in. Obviously, they're keen to get on the power as soon as they can through the corners, but you take it just a nanosecond too early and the back will step out on you, and you're in all sorts of trouble as they come round to complete lap 8. Onto the 9th lap, the gap remains the same within a couple of hundredths. We've had a spinner as well in the shape of the 55 car, which is one of the CR Scuderia cars. That's Chris Niarchos taking the start there.
Well, these are very tricky conditions, as we've said. and most of the time I think you'll find a spin here in these conditions will be fairly harmless, but this is still shaping up to be anything but harmless. Marcel Fassler, let's not underrate him either. We've been talking about Carl Wendlinger. Look at Marcel Fassler. This is top-class driving, and Fassler is a very quick man in these cars, isn't he?
Yes, he did. He showed his mettle in these cars at the Spa 24-hour race over the last couple of seasons, and good to see him getting a full season drive with the Phoenix team, and alongside Jean-Denis Delatraz, the Swiss pairing looking strong for the year. But again, Wendlinger just manages to keep control of the car and the position.
Didn't work there last time, hasn't worked there this time, but that doesn't stop him trying, and it doesn't stop him showing Carl Wendlinger the front end of the Corvette in the mirrors. There's not an awful lot of rear view from inside one of these cars. Wendlinger has got this covered, but Marcel Fassler is dogging him every step of the way. He's piling on the pressure every time he gets a chance. He shows Carl Wendlinger that he's ready to overtake. He's looking for the opportunity. Very, very aggressive driving. It's making life very difficult for Carl Wendlinger. It's very difficult to drive to the racing line and concentrate on everything you should be doing, your braking points and all the rest of it, while somebody's jumping up and down behind you, so desperate to get past as Fassler clearly is. And now we're coming up on slower traffic, and that could be a chance for Fassler.
Yep, up to and past a much slower Corvette, another new entry this year, the AT Racing Corvette C5R, an older car of Wolfgang Kaufman, a car started by its owner, Alexander Talkanitsa, again from Russia.
Oh, he's completely round,
oh,
360.
Dear, oh dear. Round he goes, that's the AT car going through picture, and Wendlinger's lost it.
And stalled it as well. Well, commentator's curse strikes again. We've told you how good Carl Wendlinger is in the wet, and oops, he isn't. And I don't know if you saw it as it happened. Let's have a look at it from externally. When we were on board with Carl Wendlinger, he was putting steering into it, and it was still just hanging the back out. And eventually he reached the lock. Here we go. Watch the steering wheel. Here he goes. Whole thing round. Couldn't catch it. He knew it was going to go, but there was nothing he could do about it. And a full 360 right on the start of the start-finish straight. And he's lost half a dozen places as a result. He's down to 5th now. Going over the start-finish line. So here's your new race leader, and it's exactly what we were saying. He put Carl Wendlinger under so much pressure, and it's so difficult to get everything right. That's a tricky corner, isn't it? At the best of times, coming through there, flat out and on slippery, wet conditions, knowing when to squeeze the throttle and when not to.
Absolutely, and Bouchou looks to have had a bit of a moment there as well. Has he fallen back behind, or no, it's not. Oh, there's contact there between, that's the 36, Alex Muller getting on the grass on the outside of the corner there, tapping into the back of the Corvette and then having a second moment on his own. So Alex Muller getting a bite into the back of one of the vets, and hope he hasn't done too much damage to the front of his own car. It's very loose around there. That's club corner, so it was coming into the Vale. Here he is, just gets 1 foot on the grass, and that's enough to send the car sideways into the back of the slower AT Corvette.
I'm not sure that he didn't come into there just a little bit too hot. I think he was hoping to go through on the inside there, wasn't he? But it didn't happen, and all of a sudden what was looking like a very good day for Aston Martin has turned rather sour for them, and it is once again Corvette that rules this particular route in the shape of the 5 car. Marcel Fassler, Christophe Bouchou is second, then Alex Muller is probably still around about 5th or 6th. Mike Hazeman, you're looking at in the 6 car, has just benefited from Muller's spin. We're thinking of him in 3rd place now where Muller was, and we'll get full confirmation of how it's all worked out as they go over the start-finish line now. Here come the positions, Fassler, Bouchou, Hazeman, and then Wendlinger recovering from 5th, but he's benefited because Muller spun, so he's just passed his teammate. So Wendlinger now in 5th place with everything to do. He's 11 seconds behind the race leader, and that's an awful lot to make up in these conditions.
Yep, Carl Wendlinger here on his recovery drive, hopefully as he will see it, back to the front where he belongs. But in these conditions it just goes to show that even the best can be caught out. Marcel Fassler meanwhile carries on serenely on his way. He was taking a much more aggressive line through many of the corners, and yet not able to improve on the Wendlinger's time. But it was Wendlinger in the end who made the mistake.
And just a demonstration there of the difference between GT1 and GT2. Carl Wendlinger just drove past the Scuderia Cos Ferrari the GT2 car. Much slower, as you saw there on the straight, and he's already pulling away from it now, opening up a gap. But the car in front of him is in fact a Corvette, and it's a long way in front of him. That's the car he really wants to get hold of, and he's got a long way to go, as we say.
Well, yes, he's got about 3 seconds to make up on Mike Siemens, which will never be easy, but he is going to have to put the pedal to the metal to make that happen, because he was a couple of laps slower last time round, a couple of seconds slower last time round. All the cars still unable to break that 2-minute barrier around here at Silverstone. As we look at the number 2 Maserati, the two have now swapped places. Andrea Bertolini has got ahead of his teammate, and there is Bertolini now ahead of Zandy Negrow in the number 2 car.
On board in the number 1 Maserati as we speak. This is Bertolini, and I expect to see them do better than they are at the moment. Yes. Maserati always, but Vitaphone particularly, managed to pull a little magic trick, and somehow or other in the pit stops they do this bit of conjuring, and they come out a lot further up the leaderboard than they went in, and they often gain places by the handful.
Yes, they seem to have some magic cloak through which the drivers pass when they get into the car in the race, and things happen in race strategy terms for Vitaphone that don't seem to happen in other garages. Meanwhile, they are being passed gradually, one at a time. Negrow already passed, and Bertolini, I think, shortly to be passed by another Aston Martin, a car we haven't yet mentioned, and there it is in shot, the number 10 Gigawave entry for Alan Simonson, who's started the car and was in 6th place on the grid, so not a particularly auspicious start for Alan, but his first full season in GT1 racing, having made its mark largely down in Australian GT racing series, but a very strong drive, also runs in the Le Mans series over here, and sharing with Philip Peter, so another good driver pairing, and that car lapping quicker than most of those in front of him.
Well, of course, Philip Peter is quick in the wet as well. He won the GT1 race in Mugello when it was torrential rain, and that was the Aston Martin's first win for a good long while, and it was certainly Jeff Alliance's first win, and it started off a fairly strong streak for Aston Martin and Jeff Alliance. So this is a car to watch, and of course it's got the right flag on the front for us, Union Jack. Absolutely,
there is British interest here. We talked about the Scuderia Recos, Ferrari and GT2. Jamie Davies has found himself a berth in there alongside Pirelli man Fabio Babini, so the pair of them on Pirelli rubber in the Scuderia Recos car, and done a lot of testing with a new dry compound tower, only to find, of course, that they can't use it here this weekend.
Through the complex with the Gigawave car. And you can see that when to squeeze the throttle going through that final corner is quite important. Too early, too much, and exactly what happened to Carl Wendlinger will happen to you. And speaking of Carl Wendlinger, is that him or is that Alex Muller in the Merc?
That's the Wendlinger car. Alex Muller already 1 place back, 2.5 seconds behind Wendlinger, but Wendlinger being a little more circumspect than Siemens in the Corvette ahead of him, who is trying to trace down, and Siemens has put another 1.5 seconds into that gap. It's now over 4 seconds.
And here is this battle between the Corvettes up front. It is now Christophe Bouchou
and Siemens. Siemens the man on the move, the only one in the 201s at the moment, everyone else stuck in the 2s and 3s, so Siemens very much the quickest of the front runners, and going right up onto the back of Christophe Bouchou, who is a hard man in driving terms. He's not an easy man to pass.
Absolutely. Mike Siemens has been doing this longer than anybody, though. He's been in this GT racing. I can remember him in the Lotus Esprit, going back right to the very beginning of this series. He knows his sports cars, he knows his racing. He's hard and fair as well, and as you say, he does have the speed at the moment. Catching someone in racing, though, is easier than passing them. Jean-Denis Delatraz looking at the pictures that we're looking at, waiting to see what's happening out on track. And the answer is Haseman is still stalking Christophe Boucher.
Chasing hard, but not able to make that final little leap to bridge the gap that exists between them. We'll see what it is as they cross the line. It was 8/10 last time round, and they're coming through the Luffields and out into Woodcote now, ready to start another lap.
And we've watched them through the complex there lots of times. That really is quite an important section of the Silverstone circuit. Get it right, and you get a good launch out onto this start-finish straight. Get it wrong, and you come out of Luffield a lot slower than you wanted to. That's when you attempted to stab the throttle a lot earlier than you ought to.
Fine racing going on here, given the conditions. It's very, very difficult at the best of times to keep these cars in a straight line. And bear in mind, we're not looking at just a GT1 race here. We've got GT2 cars circulating at the same time, which have to be routinely passed as you're trying to keep your fellow competitors behind you. So it's not just a matter of keeping an eye on your immediate opposition. You've got to be able to make your way through the slower traffic as well. And they've just done that in the form of one of the slower Porsches in the GT2 category, the track speed entry for David Ashburn and Richard Williams.
Carl Wendlinger is closing up. I think he's 3 seconds behind Mike Haseman, and the gap here, as you can see, is fractions of a second. So as they went over the line last time, it was 0.4, and it's 0.2 or 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. Makes no difference really. We're just in the position now with these two that Carl Wendlinger was in when he had Marcel Fassler jumping up and down all over the back end of the Aston Martin and was spun into a mistake. Team manager car 1 reports to the race director immediately, and I don't know what that's about, because it's not really figuring in the proceedings at the moment. In 6th place, it is some 26 seconds behind the battle for the lead that Carl Wendlinger is trying to rejoin.
Yep, and he's regained a bit of the advantage that he'd lost over Mike Haseman's. Haseman's now embroiled, of course, in that battle with Christophe Boucher, which means his lap times will drop back a little bit. Wendlinger able to capitalise on that and bring the gap down to nearer 3 seconds than 4. Dirk Muller remains a further 3.5 seconds behind Wendlinger. So the two Race Alliance Astons well placed at the moment, as are the two Phoenix cars. And Alan Simonson is now within a second of Andrea Bertolini in that #1 Maserati.
Fassler, after 14 laps and some half an hour of racing, is 13 seconds ahead of this battle for second place. So while these two have been duelling, he's quietly been banging in nice, clean, tidy laps, which, as we keep saying, you can do that when you're on your own. It's when you've got somebody with you that you have to watch them, they have to watch you, and then both of you start to lose little fractions of a second in every corner. Everything's just a little bit less perfect than it could be, and the result is that anyone who's on their own can really start to clear off into the middle distance. Closing on the back end of Ben Alcott in the Maserati, and of course traffic sometimes provides an overtaking opportunity when there are two cars in a close battle, but everybody seems to be doing very well at staying out of the way in these conditions, which is quite remarkable.
Absolutely. Ben Alcott, those of you who are watching the season last year will remember, was running in the Citation Cup class and won the class. Not this year though, they're running with the full spec race tyres on the car and in the full GT1 category.
Still giving best to the Corvettes, as we've said. This has really been their circuit. All weekend they have been the dominant force here, it seems, until it rained. And did it rain?
Yeah.
But now normal service restored up front, as we've seen.
The surface still very greasy though. You can see on the tight shots that the cars are really skating away, just not quite getting the front end adhesion, which when you come through places like Bridge Bend, where we just saw the two Corvettes running through, this is Bridge, the Corvettes coming through nose to tail as Alan Simonson closing up again on Andrea Bertolini. So Aston Martin challenging Maserati there for 6th place. Alan Simonson, the Dane, who, as I said, spent a lot of time down in Australia, only ever driven one GT1 car before this weekend's event, and that was a rather aged 550 Maranello Ferrari, of which we have an example in this race as well.
Somewhere or other. Although looking out the window into the mist, you wouldn't know that there's a race going on, but there it is, the 77 car in 20th place on our timing, and we're on board again in that Aston Martin.
the 550 Maranello, just a point of interest, driven by two former Formula One drivers from Argentina, Esteban Tuero and Gaston Mazzacane, both former Minardi F1 drivers, and in the series to promote the fact that our final round this year is at a brand new circuit at San Luis in Argentina. That's not yet of interest to these two. They'd rather get down to business here at Silverstone, where the weather conditions are rather different than those we might encounter in South America.
Well, of course, as you said earlier on, this is a very physical thing that they've been doing, and they've been doing it for over half an hour now. And at about this point in the proceedings, fatigue will start to creep in, concentration starts to get a little bit less perfect, driving gets a little bit more ragged. This is when we see mistakes, and there is no doubt at the moment that Christophe Bouchou, under pressure from Mike Hazeman, and as we've said before, both of them vastly experienced and both firm but essentially fair.
Yes, and they're coming up also to the first sort of time window that we need to pay attention to, which is a new rule this year where drivers must do at least one continuous 35-minute stint in the race, and that time will be coming up upon us soon. So anybody who may have started their weaker driver in the car has the option from 35 minutes on to bring them in to make that mandatory driver change at their first of their two obligatory pit stops, and to get the quicker man in for the balance of the event.
It's a complicated old business, all that, and what tyres should we use, when should we make our pit stop, everything to take into consideration. And the fact that a lot of these people are working to a strategy can change things later in the race. What happens now might not make immediate sense, but it all pans out as we go towards the final hour.
Still on board with Wendlinger.
Chops it down 2 gears and holds that. Now gets ready for the big one.
It's an immensely challenging series of corners, that Maggots-Beckett's complex. Now we're down out on the straight though, and you can see immediately the hammer goes down, up through the gears.
I think this is probably the only place on the circuit where they will hit 6th gear. I think most other places for the GT1's 5th gear on the start-finish straight, and perhaps on a couple of the other ones as well. The hangar is the only place they'll hit top gear, and something like 160, 170 miles an hour. At the moment though, Marcel Fassler leads it. It's Christophe Bouchou still in seconds, but second place, 13 seconds adrift. Mike Hazeman is third. Carl Wendlinger is still there in fourth. Rob Bell is currently in second place in GT2, I think, and you're looking at the 56 CR Scuderia car now. That's him. In front of him is the G2 car of Sean Edwards, that just gradually tumbled down to 13th place, which is exactly what Sean knew would happen, and he would have, I think, perhaps wanted it to stay a lot wetter than it has done. Number 6 is Mike Hazeman in the Corvette, the GT1 Corvette, in third place. Ahead of him, and some 1.5 seconds in front of him, is Christophe Bouchou in the black and white Corvette, and in front of him is Marcel Fassler.
It's a very impressive start.
Yeah, the start was so aggressive from the Bouchou side, but Marcel has a huge experience. I was not afraid about it.
Thank you.
Marcel have huge experience.
Jean-Denis Delatraz there, Marcel Fassler's co-driver, of course, looking into the windscreen there of a Mosler, again new to the championship, and the go-to-one team put together by Antonin Charus for principally a team of Czech drivers, but including also Kenneth Heyer, son of Hans Heyer, the German touring car and sports car driver from the 70s and 80s, and this brand new team having their problems here at Silverstone with scrutineering issues, but finally getting the cars out on track and able to race.
Marcel Fassler, meanwhile, is stuck behind the Celine of Bert Langin, and Langin and Kumpen swapped their Corvette for a Celine to start the season, and they're really having a very bad first outing with it. They've had a horrible time in qualifying. They're not happy with the car. It's not happy with them either. I don't think, it's just not working for them, and they're all both casting envious glances at all the Corvettes in the pit lane, and of course especially this one, Marcel Fessler. He's now 12 seconds clear of Christophe Bouchou as they go through traffic.
And just ahead of Fessler at the moment is the 61 Porsche. There it is of Emmanuel Collard, the almost factory, but we don't call them factory entered cars, in that it has two factory drivers in the car and Norbert Singer sitting in the garage. So the Pro Speed competition car, of course running in GT2, is never going to be up to pace with the Corvette ahead of it, but nonetheless running as top Porsche behind three other 430 Ferraris in the GT2 class.
Now I'll tell you what, we're getting towards the end of our first hour, and that means we're getting towards the pit stop windows, and we are about to make tyre decisions. Look out of the window, Graham. We're sitting in our commentary box, and it's still horrible grey, foggy, misty day here. It's still that on camera, but if you look at the track is practically dry now everywhere around this circuit. All of these cars are out on full wets, or most of them are out on full wets. They will be needing to stop and change those fairly soon, because a dry track will just rip them to shreds, and they're going to have a decision to make.
They are, and decisions will be taken all the way down as we look at the first of the cars to make that decision. And it's Carl Wendlinger right on cue, Richard, listening to you obviously, hitting the brakes and the pit lane speed limiter. As in most forms of motor racing nowadays, there is a pit lane speed limit to protect the poor souls who have to work in the pit lane during a race. It's an exciting place to be, but it can be a mighty dangerous one. The crew go to work.
Inters, they're putting inters on, aren't they?
Yep.
So it's not dry enough for slicks.
No, I think there's still a little bit too greasy there, just watching as the fuel goes in first. It's one of the regulations in sports car racing that if there's fuel going into the car, the only thing you're allowed to do is to clean the windscreen, and if you wish to do a driver change.
Look at that tyre though, you can see that it's almost smooth, but it's got grooves cut in it to clear water. It's a halfway house between the totally smooth, slick tyre used in racing in good weather and the wet weather tyre with a full set of treads, very similar to the tyre on your car at home. So not dry enough for the full slicks, but a halfway stop for the Aston Martin and a 40-second pit stop. As Graham said, only 4 people can touch the car. It's not a Formula 1 full service in 5 seconds, so it's 40 seconds at rest, and that makes it over a minute for a pit lane in, pit lane out, full service pit stop.
And also taking advantage of an early stop was Alexander Negrow in the number 2 Maserati coming in at the same time. So both of those potential contenders for the podium have already made their first stop, but others are hanging on in there. Or maybe hanging on out there would be a better way of putting it. The first of the men to show an improvement as a result of Wendlinger's stop, of course, is the man who was immediately behind him, and that is Alan Simonson, who's now up to 5th place and chasing down Alex Muller as we see the 55 Scuderia, the CR Scuderia car. That's Chris Niarchos in, and I would imagine he will have handed over to Tim Mullen. Yes, that has. Yes, that's Tim Mullen, I think, in the car now, so that would make sense certainly to get Tim in to do the double stint.
Didn't see that stop and didn't see the length of it. They of course lost a couple of laps in the Merc with a spin, so they've got a lot of ground to make up, and they may have elected to stay on the same tyres and save themselves 30 of those 40 seconds.
More traffic ahead of Marcel Fessler, who's on his 22nd lap now, and still got a healthy lead and a growing lead, in fact, over Christophe Bouchou. As we look back at Alan Simonson, who looks to have passed now Alex Muller. Indeed, there is the second Jet Alliance car, the 36 car, now of course ahead of Bertolini, his teammate, because Bertolini made that stop, but that promotes Alan Simonson up to 4th place overall from his start position of 6th. Fell down a little bit in the early stages, but has made a good recovery and a very strong showing. And he in turn will hand over to Philip Peter, who we've already mentioned as being another fine wet weather driver. So look for a strong finish in the Gigawave's first outing of the 2008 season.
So Marcel Fessler, after 21 laps, is 11 seconds clear of Bouchou. He is gradually nailing that gap, Christophe Bouchou. He's being pushed by Mike Hazeman, who's currently about 2 seconds behind him. But they are slowly easing towards Marcel Fessler. And that's possibly because Marcel Fessler as he backed it off a little bit. Let's have a look. He's on 2:01s, so they're still just outside the 2 minutes, and he is quicker on his last lap than Bouchou or Hazeman. So Marcel Fassler is still on it.
Smooth style from Simonson as we're on board, coming there through Bridge and up into Brooklands and Priory and the Luffields. String of cars ahead of him to be dealt with. He'll hope to catch those as he exits Woodcote and get a clean run down through the start-finish straight. One pulling off into pit lane ahead of him, that'll help. There's two GT2 cars ahead, both Ferraris.
And pit lane staying remarkably empty at the moment. I was expecting, as we turned the hour, to see a parade of cars coming in, but it's just Carl Wendlinger so far and the Chris Niarchos, Tim Mullen Ferrari that have dived in. And there's one more in there, as you said, and there it is.
That's the car. Yeah, that's the 550 Maranello we were talking about earlier, with the two former F1 drivers from Argentina aboard. Venerable car.
Oh, here we go. In comes the Maserati. Now, this is slick work. I didn't get a stopwatch on the start of that, so we're about a second adrift on my timing, but look at them, ready to go, fuel in, and they're having trouble with that. It's the air jack, hasn't it? The car up. The air wasn't even turned on.
Oh, slick work indeed. Inters again going on to the car. So
commentators cursed, never mind Inters. With cursed Maserati as well.
Yes, it's full, very hot. You see the steam coming off those very hot full wets coming off there.
And very warm, weren't they? Hardly any of the tread left.
And you can see the frustration there of the mechanic, the air jack being planted down firmly onto the discarded tyre at the end of that pit stop. Somebody will get their wrist slapped.
But that was still a 34-5 second pit stop. They were still 5 seconds slicker.
Wendlinger on his fresh rubber has just set the race's fastest lap, and the first one to break the 2 minute barrier on a 1:59.7 last time round.
Currently in 7th place and getting the benefit, as Graham says, of having intermediates. Everybody seems to be opting for that. So
Bertolini having just stopped, he should be promoted another place as he crosses the line next time. Marcel Fassler already has done, with the gap to Bouchou still hovering around the 11 seconds, and further 3 now back to Mike Hazeman. Let's see what Alan Simonson has to do. It was about 12 seconds back between him. He's pared that all the way down already to 8.2 seconds, so catching Hazeman at something like 2 seconds a lap. This man Simonson is hot property.
Fassler is your leader, Bouchou is second, and Hazeman has crept up behind, well, actually lost a second, hasn't he? It's Bouchou still taking a second a lap basically out of the race leader. Here's Alex Muller in the pits in the 36 Jeff Lyons car. Lucas Hoyer will doubtless take over the driving. And
good
you can see intermediate tyres waiting to go on it.
Good showing from Muller in his first FIA GT race.
Pair of Maseratis on track 2, heads 1 as we see them, but they are out of order because one stopped, one hasn't, so they're not on the same lap. So this is not racing as such. Andrea Bertolini is in the number 1 car. As you saw from 5th gear, ran out of straight and he was on the brakes and already turning into cops as he went down 2 gears. So will Carl Wendlinger's early pit stop pay off, do we think?
He's making his way past one of the Moslers. Car's already filthy from the spray and dirt thrown up off the track.
Still moving about just a little bit. We have a Corvette pit stop here, do we?
Yes, we do. This will be the blue mirrors on the number 5 car. So Marcel Fassler coming in from the lead of the race, which will now be inherited by Christophe Bouchou. So it'll be a Corvette still in front, but it'll be the SRT racing entry, the Celleslar racing car, rather than the Phoenix.
Interestingly, it seems that a lot of the teams have elected to leave their star wet driver behind the wheel. Marcel Fasser staying in the car, Carl Wendlinger stayed in the car, and you can see that long prong fuel filler that they use on the Corvettes. Now the guns go on, and this time the air jack was switched on, and something like 21 bar lifts the car up in the air in no time at all.
Let's see what's coming off, and yes, again, full wets coming off and inters going on, so a hint of a dry line appearing, but certainly not enough for the teams to gamble on slicks just yet. It'll be interesting to see if they are able to do so at the second stop, even if they choose to swap tyres at the second stop. They may be able to hang on with what they've got.
New race leader then because of the pit stop, and now we've entered that phase where some people have stopped and some people haven't. We'll have to wait and see how the whole race shapes up after the stops, but you can expect the race order to be pretty similar to what it was before, with the possible exception of that Maserati conjuring trick, although as we saw with the number 1 car, didn't quite pay off, did it?
Team managers who haven't yet elected to bring their drivers in GT1, please note the timing screens would indicate it's a good idea. Carl Wendlinger's time now in the 1:57s. So those who are staying out on the worn wet tyres are really now paying the price, and the guys who have dived into the pits early are making hay and closing gaps like no tomorrow.
Well, Carl Wendlinger then on at 57 is actually, well, he is 5 seconds a lap faster than most of the people who have not yet stopped. So that really is going to change the picture in the race unless everybody else makes their pit stops and makes that decision. It looks dry almost everywhere around here, and they're still putting on inters, which...
Yeah, more inters. That's another Corvette coming in, and that's Mike Hazelman's, who presumably will also hang on in the car. No driver change anticipated there either. An immensely experienced driver, as of course was his father, Toyner Hazelmans, who is team manager for the Phoenix cars.
And waiting for the fuel to finish. What are they doing with tyres? There's nobody there with a gun on this side of the car, and I don't know if Mike Hazelman isn't... No, they are going to change the tyres.
Tucked in behind the fueler. Very neat move, sliding the old tyre out between the legs. There he goes again. Nice action, nice action.
How different it is to Formula One.
Yep.
There's none of that ballet with 17, 18 people who throwing tyres around. Just
He
one
might have been
port
a rugby league player in a previous life.
They might have been, mightn't they? A wheel and tyre for the even on alloy rims, they are heavy things. That's a physical job for one man to do, and you can see that it does take a lot longer to do it on your own than it does when you've got 16 blokes helping you.
And the first two in our leaderboard are now only two of the leading cars who haven't yet stopped, of course. Christoph Bouchou and Alan Simonson both electing to stay out longer than anybody else at the head of the field, so although they head it now, they will tumble down the order as they in turn must take their stops.
Well, Christoph Bouchou's last lap was 2:02. Carl Wendlinger, as you said, is shot down into the high 50s, and so is everybody else, basically, who's come out on intermediates.
Including Alan Simonson, who, let's remind ourselves, is still on those very hot, warm, full wets, so good job by him. But the fastest first sector now going to Alex Muller in the 36 car. So real benefit to be had now in getting that change done.
I think those the tyres on that number 10 Aston Martin of Alan Simonson, they're anything like the ones we saw on the Maserati. They're nice and smooth. He's practically on slicks now.
Yes, yeah, Roman Rusinov aboard the Lamborghini we see there, and nice to have an on-board from them as he's just coming up behind a somewhat squirrely Porsche, one of the Pro Speed cars.
Squirrely Lamborghini as well.
Great sound the Lamborghini makes. It's one of those cars that stealths up on you. As it approaches you, you hear almost nothing, and then the air just rips apart as it comes past you and shatters your eardrums on the way out. Pit stop for the 56 car. Rob Bell there in the car for the first stint, and holding down second place in GT2 as he came in from Christian Montanari in the second of the AF Corsa cars. Tony Wielander still out in the lead and still yet to make their first stop. So this is the first of the GT2 front runners to come into the pits.
And again, we're seeing the intermediate tyres go on, and I presume there must be an awful lot of dampness in the air. There's the man we were talking about just now, Alan Simonson, in the number 10 Gigawave car, currently holding second place by virtue of not having made a pit stop.
And still able to lap very well, only a second or so shy of Marcel Fessler's time. Fessler already has made his stop, of course, and is almost a full minute behind the car with which we're now on board, that of Alan Simonson, making his way through the complex back out towards at the start of another lap.
So he's staying out yet again. He's been running for quite some time, in fact.
55 minutes coming up. Fuel will start to become an issue eventually.
Coming to the end of the fuel tank,
comes Bouchou. So Simonson goes into the lead by virtue of staying out longer than anyone else at the head of the field, but how much longer can he maintain this sort of pace when Alex Muller's turned in a 1:55.9 in the second of the two Jet Alliance Astons?
So Simonson leads it up, and it's an artificial lead. Bouchou's just dropped off the lead, but we expect that he will resume at or near the front. It'll be interesting to see, because Marcel Fassler's out there as well, and of course that is an old battle that goes back some way. We're looking at the number 2 Maserati, which is currently, I'm looking forward, there it is, in sixth place.
Yeah, Sandy Negrow staying aboard and doing a good job in his first outing for the team. A couple of places ahead of what we would imagine would be the stronger pairing of Andrea Bertolini and Michael Bartels. But Bertolini it is who is still behind the Jet Alliance Aston of Muller, and 2.5 seconds almost behind, and not able to maintain the same pace either. There is Muller, and he's looking quite closely now at the back of the number 2 Maserati in less than half a second as they crossed the line last time. So a Maserati sandwich, with the Aston being the filling.
It's worth pointing out that the Maserati team have dominated this series for the last couple of years, and we expect to see them looking in better shape than this, do we not?
Yes, you would expect to. It'd be interesting to see whether Simonson comes in again this time, but it's early days yet. We've still got over half our race distance to run, and it's often been in the latter stages that suddenly, from nowhere, the Maserati stealth up the leaderboard.
Yes, we'll see about that in a moment or two. It's quite interesting that they're here basically looking for their 3rd title, and a little bit squirrely under brakes there as they go through the right-hander, and the Aston Martin's got the line but not the position. So that is almost, well, now in traffic, no. The other Maserati, which was being driven by Ben Orcutt at the start of the race, I don't know whether that's stopped yet, might still be Ben Orcutt, keeping out of the way, and no change in position.
Just a little flap on the bonnet, the little looseness on the bonnet of the Aston as a legacy of having run into the back of the number 12 AT Racing Corvette earlier on, when the Alex Muller just put a wheel on the grass, just as in the corner where they are now, coming through Vale and down to Abbey rather now, as they are through Bridge and back up into the complex again. It's an immensely challenging circuit, Silverstone, and one that, to my mind, has been improved somewhat by all the alterations in recent years. As we look at the GT1 leader coming in, Tony Vielander, the driver change going on in that car, so it'll be Jimmy Bruni to take over.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? A lot of people have elected to leave the wet weather specialists out there, but I'm not sure that it's entirely wet now, so I'm not sure that it makes a difference. Tony Vielander, we know, is very good when conditions are poor, but we're on a drying circuit. They've gone from wets to intermediates in this car. Jimmy Bruni, every bit as quick in the dry, I think, as Tony Vielander. And Vielander, of course, remember, the defending champion in GT2.
Yep, and Marcel Fessler putting on a bit of a charge, trying to make up time before Alan Simonson makes his stop, and he's put in his quickest first sector recently, but Simonson's still out there, still in the 1:58, setting again his fastest lap last time round, so clearly he doesn't mind that it's a driver change. That's Miro Konopka, isn't it, taking over his car, the 111 Celine. We've got no fewer than 4 Celines this year in the FIA GT Championship, 1 running in G2, the one you just saw, and 3 in the senior class. Meanwhile, this battle continues as in comes another of the G2 class. This is one we're familiar with because they ran throughout last season, the Gilles Vertigo from Belgium.
Yes.
And a driver change going on for them as well.
Simonson still leads it at the moment after 29 laps. Must be coming to the end of petrol as well as tyres, although they'll use less. They'll use less fuel, won't they, in these conditions? But now he's starting to pack it in at racing speed.
There's this battle continuing, and it looked for all the world there as though Muller had the drop on Sandy Negrow, but Negrow able to keep him honest and drive around the outside of that corner and hold the Aston Martin back again. This is a real battle developing between these two, a great one to watch.
And I think Negrow's hoping that he'll get a bit of help in a moment. His teammate is close behind. There he is, Andrea Bertolini in the number 1. Maserati is right behind the Aston Martin, and if he can give a little bit of trouble to Alex Muller, he can maybe give his teammate a break and a bit of clear track.
Timing the scoring screen lighting up green as the track conditions improve and people start continuously to set their fastest laps. So we've got Alan Simonson still leading, but no pit stop from him as yet.
Everybody else, mind, has been in just about, haven't they?
Here's Christian Montanari out of what was the second place in GT2.
Well, Inter's going on there, as Graham said, that was second place in GT2, so the pit stops are just giving the whole thing a thorough shaking, and we'll have to wait for everybody to complete their stops. Up front though, Alan Simonson, yet to make a pit stop, still leads this race after an hour and 29 laps from Marcel Fassler in the Corvette. Old this race. Alan Simonson still leads it but hasn't made a pit stop. Carl Wendlinger you're looking at now, the Aston Martin twitching all over the place. He literally trying to drive the wheels off it. Is out there in what is 4th place on the leaderboard, but an effective 3rd because we expect Simonson to go in. There's his teammate Ryan Sharp with Anne Law.
Ryan, it was a very exciting beginning of the race, and now the Aston looks perfect.
Yeah, the Aston's very good. We called Carlin for intermediates at the right time. We gained all the time we lost with the incident with the back markers, and now I think it's going to be a bit of a race to the finish. There's still the odd situation with Simonson has a big lead at the moment on his still yet to stop, so we'll wait and see what happens after that.
Thank you.
Ryan Sharp there, and summed it up rather nicely. Effectively, Marcel Fassler leads this from Christophe Bouchou, which is what we said they would come back pretty much as they were before the pit stop. Carl Wendlinger, as Ryan says, has fought his way back up into what will be 3rd when Simonson stops, and there's a 51-second gap between Simonson and Fassler, 1st to 2nd. Now, 40 seconds for a full service stop. He's got to have tyres, hasn't he, after all this? So he will be taking tyres, but he's not going to give away an awful lot, is he?
No, he's not be giving away an awful lot, and you would think that on fresh tyres Simonson's going to be even more impressive than he is now. He's just set his fastest race lap again. He's consistently going quicker and quicker on what is now immensely worn tyre rubber. So
we're assuming, of course, that he started on wets.
He may have started on Inters, but whichever one he started on, they've done an hour and 7 minutes nearly, so, you know, time to change, lads. And we're looking at Christophe Bouchou's car, and Bouchou came in for his first stop and stayed in, has remained in 3rd position overall, chasing down Marcel Fassler at the moment, not quite as quick as Fassler last time round, but the gap's only 1.3, so nothing in this race is done and dusted yet.
Well, Alan Simonson has just pulled into the pit lane, and so the normal race order will be restored, and that'll put Fassler, Bouchou and Wendlinger 1st, 2nd and 3rd. And that's 33 laps he's done on those tyres. We're looking down in GT2, that's the 51. Christian Montanari, Ferrari, he's 2nd behind his teammate, who is now Jimmy Bruni, and is about 3 seconds up the road from him. Last time they went across the start-finish line.
Looking at the GT2 class, this is 3rd place currently, and that goes to Christian Montanari in one of the Corsa cars. Paolo Roberti, it is out in front at the moment in the BMS Scuderia car, but they have not yet had a stop. And 2nd place goes to Jimmy Bruni, who we saw taking over the 50 car earlier on from Tony Vielander.
Can't see a crash helmet in the dark now.
Well, that's Simonson. It's Simonson's car.
Oh yes, but is it still Alan Simonson? So race leader Fassler, Bouchou, Wendlinger, Hazeman, and then Alex Negrow in the first of the Maseratis with his teammate Andrea Bertolini right behind him. They have dispensed with the Aston Martin of Alex Müller, it would appear.
Christophe Bouchou has cut the lead, the deficit rather, back to, or through to Marcel Fassler, down to less than a second by dint of a good quick lap last time round, and he's on another flyer, setting the race's fastest first sector. There is the Aston, there is the Corvette we were just talking about, Christophe Bouchou, and the car in front of him is the car he's pursuing for second place, which will in turn become the overall lead, courtesy of the stop by Siemenson's Aston, number 10.
So first and second place again, the pair of Corvettes continue to dominate pretty much here. We had a good start from Carl Wendlinger and a little bit of a spin which cost him places in time and took Aston Martin from the top of the pile, and it's been a Corvette circuit pretty much all weekend.
Just a little bit wide on the exit there, Bouchou, but still in close proximity, taking a different line through some of the corners. It's hard to know what the best line is in these conditions, because there is a drying line, and if you put two wheels off it, you're going to get a little bit of lack of balance in the car, and that can send you almost anywhere. We saw earlier on cars spinning off left, right and centre, but they seem to have got a handle on the track now, as we're looking at second place Jimmy Bruni in GT1. Now he may well inherit the lead, and here is teammate.
Tony, you were kind of struggling in qualifying, but it looks good for the race.
Yeah, I started the race. We made exactly the right choice for the tire, so it came in the end at the first set of tires, like just after 1 hour of racing. So now Jimmy's in the car. The condition is very difficult. We don't know the intermediate tires. Personally, I've never used it, and I think Jimmy has never used it either. So it's these conditions is a bit of gamble. So far, we are doing really good. We are leading. I think we are leading the race after Ruberti makes the first pit stop. So really happy.
Thank you.
Nice hat. You can tell he goes skiing, can't you? So Marcel Fassler restored to the top of the leaderboard officially now, and about 0.8 of a second in front of Christophe Bouchou last time they went over the line. Wendlinger's behind them in third place, and Alan Simonson has rejoined in 10th, which is fairly exciting for him, isn't it?
Absolutely. The net result for Alan Simonson, who looks to have remained in the car if timing and scoring is to be believed, is that the pit stop that took him away from the lead, has dropped him all the way down to 8th place. Such is the level of competition here, and they're 40 seconds adrift of the leader.
Scuderia Ecos in the pits for their regulation stop. Here is the race leader, and behind him you can see the black and white Corvette, and you can see it better than he can, but he knows it's there.
Bouchou still holds the fastest race lap with the 1:55.4, currently lapping just about less than half a second slower than that. So good consistent times by both of these Corvettes, and Corvettes have always shown well here at Silverstone in the FIA GTs.
Marcel Fassler has just changed a 0.3 of a second gap into all but 2 seconds, so he is getting round a little bit quicker than the Corvette of Bouchou. We saw this in the gravel trap a while ago. This is the Gilles Vertigo, and it's obviously got problems, managed to find its way back to the pits, but that looks to me like one car less in G2. GT2 still led by Paolo Ruberti, but that's completely artificial because he owes us a pit stop, and he will disappear and leave Bruni and Montanari first and second for AF Corsa, Andrew Cacordi third place for Great Britain. Top of the leaderboard is Marcel Fassler with this small gap over Christophe Bouchou. Third place is Carl Wendlinger, and then behind that it's Hazeman, Negrow, Bertolini and Alex Müller in the Aston Martin. We've been racing here at Silverstone in the fog for an hour and 15 minutes. We've had our first round of pit stops. We've seen fuel and tyre changes. What we haven't seen a lot of is driver changes, and we are just about to reach a really interesting phase of this race because we have 43 minutes left to go. The rules say that both drivers must take part in the race, and each of them must complete at least 35 continuous minutes in the car. And for a huge number of people, that means there must be a pit stop in the next 10 minutes, and there must be driver changes. Marcel Fassler, Christoph Buescher, Karl Wendlinger, Mike Hazeman, Alex Negrow, Andrea Bertolini, Alex Muller. The top 7 cars must all stop in the next 10 minutes.
And you remember, dear viewer, that the Alan Simonson driven car tumbled all the way down to 8th. That was because they've made their driver change. Philip Peter, it is, who's taken over the number 10 car, and so they will benefit hugely from the next round of pit stops because they won't have to make that driver change, and that will save them an immense amount of time.
So it's all going to get very interesting. I think a lot of the GT2s, Bruni, Montanari, Cacodia, the top 3 in GT2 have changed driver when they changed tyres. So there's not so much drama there, and there's not so much clock watching either. It's not impossible for team managers to get their sums wrong at this stage of the proceedings and to incur penalties.
Yeah, Montanari still to change in GT2 because Thomas Biaggi hasn't driven that car yet, so the second place AF Corsa car does need to make a driver change, but otherwise, yeah, in GT2 it's much the same. Richard Westbrook now out in the leading Porsche, the former Super Cup champion for 2006 and 2007 Londoner. Richard Westbrook now taking over from Pollard in the 61 Pro Speed Porsche.
Well, it is 1:30 on a Sunday afternoon here at Silverstone, and the murk that's been hanging about looks slightly lighter looking away to the south here, or rather to the southwest, but I thought for a moment there that on one of the cameras at the bottom of the circuit I saw a touch between the Corvette and the Maserati, and that pass has been shaping up for a long time, and you can see there a driver ready to take over. Now this is exactly what we're saying. Mike Hazeman will come in,
very wide there,
both of them through and all over the place, and you can expect Mike Hazeman in for a driver change imminently, I think. But what I was saying is I think I could see rain on some of the camera lenses, and we might just have seen a bit of evidence of that in those squirrely Maseratis. And it may well be that the rain is returning to Silverstone, or at least to part of it, because it's definitely not raining on our bits, is it?
39 laps in the books for Marcel Fassler, who crosses the line again. Christoph Buescher it is who's due to follow, but in fact dives into pit lane for his second stop, so that will be the driver change, and here it is happening now. Christoph Buescher handing over to Dutch driver Xavier Marson. Marson coming into the FIA GT series for the first time.
Outgoing driver lends a hand, you can see, helping the new driver to get strapped in, and this is one of the unique things about GT racing. You share the car, and after you've done your worst or your best with it, you give it to your teammate, and it's his turn. So your efforts are sometimes reflected better by your teammates' efforts, or reflected rather worse by your teammates. There's so much difference to single-seater racing here, and that stop completed very quickly and very tidily indeed.
Yeah, we'll see how that fares. Xavier Marson, as I said, coming into the series full-time for the first time, but having driven the Spa 24 hours in a Viper back in 2004, his background really is in single-seaters, but he has, as I mentioned, this ambition to win the Le Mans 24-hour race, and he absolutely sees the FIA GTs as the way forward towards that ambition.
Marcel Fassler is your race leader in that number 5 Corvette. He's done the 39 laps. He's 10 seconds in front of the Masson car when it went in. And of course, the pit stops will shake up the leaderboard once again, and there'll be a little bit of confusion about who is exactly where, but we expect it to be pretty similar.
We saw in the pits earlier on the number 101, the Gilles Vertigo, and official confirmation as into the pits comes the leader. That's Marcel Fassler heading down pit lane for his second stop. And the 101 Gilles Vertigo is abandoned for technical reasons. The technical reason we saw was that half the back floor was falling off.
Abandoned because the back's dropped off or been knocked off as it spun off
yes,
in the
into
gravel.
the kitty litter. So, leader in the pits, coming down for the stop, and remember this has to be the driver change from Fessler to Delatraz. There is Delatraz ready to take over. Out the climbs, rather weary, I should imagine now, Marcel Fessler. In climbs a slightly larger frame of Jean-Denis Delatraz.
You try driving on the M1 in fog and rain, nose to tail as fast as you can for an hour and a quarter, and you have some idea of the effort of concentration, and they're all coming in now, so the team managers are very clear that they've got only 2 more minutes to make the driver changes that have to be made. 37 minutes on the clock, so they've all got to be doing it now. The pit's very busy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, and everybody we nominated is in the pits now or on their way in, or out in fact.
Out goes Delatraz. The eagle-eyed will have spotted the seat insert being thrown out as Fessler came out of the car as well. So they have these little seat squads that fit inside the racing seat to make a perfect driving position for each driver. The GT2 cars even have seats that slide backwards and forwards to accommodate that.
They have radios, I believe, and air conditioning, something. Out that go the Maseratis, and we'll see if their pit stop conjuring trick has worked this time. They'll have to complete a lap. All of the cars that have just been in, we need them to do a full lap, come back across the start-finish line, trip the timing beams, and give us a clear idea of exactly where they are in the race. But if it was 2 Corvettes up the front, I wouldn't be terrifically surprised.
No, and keep an eye on what happens with the number 10 Gigawave Aston Martin pit stop as well, because remember, they've still to make a second stop, but not a driver change. So at the moment, they're sitting up in 6th place, having dropped down substantially more than that earlier on. In comes Carl Wendlinger.
I was just about to say about the number 10 car. If they play their cards right and leave him out there for as long as they can and pop him in for a splash and dash, they can do a very short pit stop and get back even more time.
Absolutely, if they can get away with the set of intermediates they put on at their first stop to see them through to the end of the race, that could be a very good strategy indeed.
Instead of keeping the car at rest while they fill the fuel tank, they'll keep it at rest while they put in just a few litres to get it to the finish, and that will cut down on the pit stop time. That could be very interesting indeed. We will have to keep an eye out for that number 10 car, and we're going to keep an eye out on this as well. Ryan Sharp now is in the car, Carl Wendlinger out.
Philip Peter, we were just talking about, as Ryan Sharp tightens the belts on his way out of pit lane. Philip Peter has set the race's fastest lap now, 1:54.7 on his last lap, and will, I believe, come round in the lead as next time round. So an amazing jump up the order there because of their early driver change in the first pit stop sequence.
Well, we said at the beginning of this race that tactics, strategy, pit stops, all of that gave an opportunity for smart thinking people to pull a flanker, shall we say, and appear as if by magic further up the leaderboard than you expected them to. And I certainly would like to say that that number 10 Aston Martin is a lot further up the leaderboard than I expected it to.
Remember though, Richard, that they do still owe us that second stop. Even though it's only a brief one, they've still got to take the penalty of that slow drive into their pit and back out onto the track again.
Absolutely, but still fantastic effort on what's really their first proper race in this championship. They came to Zolder at the end of last year, try it all out for size, and this is their first proper racing weekend, and they've shown that they've put their minds to it over the winter.
Yes, absolutely. Down in GT2 as well, we've still got the Ferrari domination that we saw last year. Here is Philip Peter in the number 10 Gigawave car, showing very strongly, as we said last time round, a 54.7. No one else in the whole race has broken into the 54s. So Philip clearly getting everything right in the car there. He's coming up behind. Is that the Celine again?
It is indeed.
Yeah, the ARC Auto Racing Club Bratislava. Celine in running in the G2 category. Dispensed with very rapidly in short order, as you would imagine, but Philip Peter coming around for another lap, so they still need to take that second stop.
Well, of course, because they've made the driver change, they don't have to worry about when to take it. They can leave it as late as the fuel will stretch. So, and a
little
touch
replay.
here, Yes, a big touch.
Oh, dear, oh dear,
dear.
both cars. That's Andrew Kokordi there in the CR Scuderia car, was in second place in class, probably before that incident, certainly. And Fabrizio Gollin, who had taken over from Mike Hazelman's in the Phoenix Racing Corvette. It looks as though both will have rejoined, however.
Well, they both seem to have carried on, but interesting that a new driver, fresh driver in a hot car, go out and try and race at the same sort of pace, and you can see how you have to work up to race speed, and if you think you're there sooner, then
this time a much more circumspect Andrew Kokordi gives Fabrizio Gollin a great deal more elbow room to get past. There's another little trio heads up towards us. This is the other of the CR Scuderia Ferraris now being sandwiched by Philip Peter, and the AT entered number 12 Corvette, now I believe in the hands of Wolfgang Kaufman.
And Wolfgang Kaufman is another one of the sports car stalwarts who's been doing this for a lot longer than he'd probably care to remember. More at home, perhaps, behind the wheel of a Porsche than a Corvette, but cheerful as ever. And as you can see, there's evidence of a little bit of damage on that three-quarter there, so they've obviously been in the wars. You're looking at the race leader, though, and that is Philip Peter in the number 10 car, the Aston Martin, on your screen now, and he is 22 seconds clear of Jean-Denis Delatraz in second place, but owes us a pit stop of uncertain timing and duration.
Yeah, but he's on a quick lap again, and set the race's fast sector time, though his overall fastest lap time has just been eclipsed by a car we've barely mentioned, the number 7 Labra Competition, Celine. The only one of the Celines really showing well, although Kumpen has brought the Piquet car up to 13th place. Greg Franchi in the number 7 Labra car just turned in a 1:54.649, so great lap there.
And at one place higher, that is...
You had a terrific start.
Yes, because it was really hard. I was on the left side, but Fassler take a full line, and I have no choice. I was going in the gravel, and if it was the case, I was going out. After that, I come back on my right, and he braked too early in the first corner, and I have no choice to overtake him. It was necessary to overtake, and it was really short.
I've never heard a racing driver say that quite like that before. I ran wide and
More fastest laps coming in. Michael Bartels having taken over from Andrea Bertolini, 1:54.2, but as I speak, a 1:53.1 from Fabrizio Gollin. That's the Aston Martin we saw having, the Corvette rather, sorry, we saw having the tangle with Andrew Kokordi's Ferrari earlier, and that seems to have lit the blue touch paper for Fabrizio, because he's done a 1:53.1, way away the fastest lap of the race.
just starting to creep towards the qualifying times here, and you can judge by that the circuit is in fact drying, and the rain that I saw again on a camera lens, I think is just a leftover from earlier in the day. So
sorry Richard, just jumping in on you, because Xavier Marston has made up a place at the expense of the 33 car now driven by Ryan Sharp. So Xavier Marston in his first FIA GT race showing very well, and up into 3rd place overall.
well, of course, that Corvette was very quick in the hands of Christophe Bouchou earlier on. Ryan Sharp, though, as a thinking driver, and he won't take the unnecessary risk and spin it off. He wants to finish before, above all else, let's say, he wants to get it to the finish line, and then he wants to jockey for position. He has only just got in the car, so he may well feel that he needs to leave it a little while, but he's getting in the thick of it now, isn't he?
It's getting racy now, though, Richard, and not happy to be held back by the Delatraz car. This is the battle, boys and girls, for 2nd place in the race. Those 3 cars all tied together and covered by a handkerchief, if you will, as they come down, start, finish straight again. Ryan Sharp looking to outbrake on, smart move into Copse there, and getting through ahead of the Corvette again. Delatraz running wide. Delatraz now coming under pressure from Marson. So it's Delatraz, Marson and Sharp, the order they started or finished the last lap with, and very, very close racing indeed.
Well, it's been a Corvette circuit, and they do look as if you have, as we saw at the beginning of this race, the Aston Martin can get ahead of them, but you really have to drive the wheels off it, and Ryan Sharp is in the process of not giving up. He's definitely up to speed now, isn't he?
And Marson again having a look down the inside into Stowe, but that won't work, I don't think. There's more speed in the Corvette than in the black and yellow Corvette than in the black and white one. That time round, Stowe's having another look down the inside into Vale, but again no way through there. And this three-car squabble is playing into the hands of Philip Peter in the leading Gigawave Aston Martin, because he is able to lap consistently 4 or 5 seconds faster than this pursuing trio, and that has given him the extended advantage now, some 33 seconds in which to make that final pit stop.
He's banging in the 154s. These boys are in the 2 minutes. It bears out everything we said before, that when you're racing like this and like they are, and it's going... No, it's not. When they're racing like this and they are, you're not lapping at your optimum speed. So Ryan Sharp is thinking about the past rather than the lap time. So you will drop off the pace, and that is, as Graham said, playing into the hands of Philip Peter and the Gigawave team. And we could well see a surprise win here at Silverstone, and we could well see tears before bedtime here. We've got 27 minutes to go, and these boys are hard at it.
Absolutely, and Fabrizio Collin still hard at it as well. A few spectators of a nervous disposition taking a step back from the fence as he sets a 151.9, and off in pursuit of Miguel Ramos, taking over the number 2 Maserati from Sandy Negrow, and cut the deficit now to just under 4 seconds.
Corvette and Aston Martin, 2nd, 3rd and 4th. Short piece of string joins them all together. The gap as they went over the line, 0.2, and that's the way the timing separates them. You can see what 0.2 of a second looks like as we ride in the 33 car.
And the gap and the gamble that has to be taken by the Gigawave people is to look at their gap back to 2nd place, which has grown by another 5 seconds. 38 seconds now Peter has in hand over this trio, who are busy taking chunks out of each other in their pursuit of 2nd place.
Ryan Sharp's just leapfrogged 1 place up, and he's now shooting for 2nd place as he runs after the Corvette. And 2 Maseratis together, 1st and 2nd, still going around in 5th and 6th place. No sign of pit stop magic at work here, and a strangely low-key performance from the Maserati team this weekend, especially after what was total domination 2 years ago and pretty close to domination last year.
Yes, absolutely, and we have to remind ourselves that Bertolini and Bartels in the number 1 car were the championship pairing the year before last.
So Ryan Sharp seems to be in a Corvette sandwich, and it's perhaps suiting him rather well, because he's got 1 place, and he's now clear to chase after the black and white Corvette ahead of him. But as you can see, the gap there appears to be growing rather than shrinking. Let's watch them over the line here as they go past the timing beams. It was 0.2 of a second last time around, and the clock says this time it's 0.7 of a second.
But importantly, Marson, now having got some free air in front of him, is able to match the pace of Philip Peter ahead. So the decision that's bearing down on the Gigawave team becomes ever more pressing. 149.2 by Fabrizio Collin. My goodness me, this man knows how to drive a Corvette. Bear in mind, he moved across from BMS Scuderia Italia, who last year were driving Aston Martins. So Phoenix Racing running the Corvette seems to suit Collin no end.
Closing up on traffic, and that might well change what's happening. And is this an attack by Maserati? It is. So having been passed and turned aside by Ryan Sharp, Jean-Denis Delatres is now coming under fire from the first of the 2 Maseratis right behind him. Michael Bartels, team owner, team leader, is giving him some real stick, and Miguel Ramos is wanting to go with him.
And it may be with the improving conditions, but it's been Bartels who's been the quicker driver of the pairing this afternoon, certainly benefiting from the drying track, and the Inters working well under these conditions. Both Maseratis lining up to have a look at the back of that Delacraz Corvette.
Well, Ryan Sharp is close behind Navier Masson. Michael Bartels is shaping up for a pass on the Corvette. This is all getting very exciting, but Philip Peter, meanwhile, continues to pull away at the head of the field, but he still owes us that pit stop. You wouldn't need me to tell you that all is not well with Miro Konotka and the number 111 Celine just pulling off into pit lane with only 3 wheels on the wagon. All, however, is very well at the front of the field. There's a lot of action taking place. Philip Peter continues to lead this race, and he has a 40-second margin over second place man Ryan Sharp. Watch the Aston Martin on the left of the picture. Little bit of smoke under braking, but that was the pass that he was shaping up to make on Javier Masson. He made it there under brakes. That's second place, and Masson third. Bartels is third. Fabrizio Gollin, your man of the match not a long while ago, Graham, is now up to 5th place by virtue of driving like a wild thing.
Absolutely, and there's been hard on the case with Michael Bartels, but Bartels able to resist for the time being. Look at this gaggle of cars coming down the hangar straight. Wonderful stuff. They've got the 37 Ferrari there. That's the 550 Maranello tucked in. We've got the Lamborghini. We've got Corvette. The 2 Corvettes running line astern at the moment, and a safety car.
But I don't know
an
why.
An incident out on the circuit that we'll try and pick up for you. First safety car of the season. And what a shame, because it's come at a time that might just decide the race in favour one way or the other, because remember, Philip Peter still has a pit stop to make.
Absolutely. Well, now I don't know what's happened, but we do have a safety car on track. It's defused the battles and it brings everybody close together, but that 40-second margin is looking very flaky, isn't it? But he's made his pit stop. Philip Peter, I don't know whether he saw that and dived in before the safety car came out, but there is the pit stop we've been expecting, and he's made it under yellow flag conditions.
And that was just a splash of fuel, no tyres going on to the car there, so good call by the Gigawave team. Be interesting to see how this all pans out. Will he be held at pit exit? Will he be allowed to rejoin and come round to the back of the group?
He's out.
If he's out, will he be picked up as leader by the safety car when they do the wave by? So many questions, so little
book
time.
of regulations is about as thick as your encyclopedia at home, and there is a regulation that determines all of those things. But in theory, the safety car should pick up the race leader, and it was Philip Peter when the safety car was deployed. It still is, according to our timing screen, Philip Peter, and I presume, therefore, that it is waiting on track for the number 10 Aston Martin.
Well, it may be that as they will cross the line again, the car that gets picked up is actually that of Ryan Sharp, who is sitting in second place, some 41.9 seconds adrift, and it will all be down to how quickly Philip Peter got in and out of the pit lane. Car's being waved by the safety car there, so he's clearly not interested in picking up the Corvette there.
Yes, as you can see, he's letting other cars go through. I still don't know what has caused the incident, and all I can say, and he's waving number 10 past. Oh, is he? No, he's waiting for number 10. That's it. He's picked up Philip Peter. Let's see what he does.
Yes, holding him.
Yep, he is still the race leader. Well, there we are then. They've made their pit stop. They've come out in front. Their lead won't be as huge as it was, but it was never going to be, so this might well have played into the hands of Gigawave Motorsport, although you've got to say all credit to them for a very clever piece of thinking on the pit wall.
What will be interesting now is to see how many cars there are between the leader here being picked up, Philip Peter, and the pursuing 33 of Ryan Sharp, because he's second on the screen doesn't necessarily mean that he's second in the line of traffic that's going to come up behind the safety car.
Well, he was 40 seconds behind, so you know there was a lot of cars between him and the leader.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Which they will have to get through in order to then track down Philip Peter with less than 16 minutes remaining of the race.
Well, we still don't know why the safety car has been deployed. The screen doesn't say anything, but you can see that it has. if it's a big problem, it might take us all the way to the checkered flag.
Right, now we're beginning to see the shape of how this pans out. There's a Mosler and a Porsche between the number 10 car and the two which have come up behind now. That looks to me peeping behind like Ryan Sharp, yes, and Xavier Marson. So just a couple of GT2 cars separate our first place Aston Martin from the pursuing Aston and Corvette.
And of course Ryan Sharp has got a pursuing Corvette right behind him again, so he's going to have to look over his shoulder as well as look up the road ahead to the race leader.
With the relative lap times they were putting in, I think Gigawave would be fairly happy to settle for what they've been dealt in terms of cards here, with maintaining the race lead, having done their pit stop, and although they gave away a 40-second advantage, that was a good trade for them because they're at the head of the field. They control what happens when the pace car peels off, and they can hit the gas and get away before the pursuing cars are able to pass those G2 and GT2 cars behind.
Interestingly, Andrew Cicaldi is the GT2 leader at the moment,
but still owing us a second pit stop. Jimmy Bruni will be not far adrift, you can be sure, and third place is Thomas Biaggi. So the AF Corsa cars again showing strongly this year, and may end up with another second and third, but it'll be us first and second will be CR Scuderia third and fourth, if that's the case, with Matteo Malugelli in the first of the BMS Scuderia Italia cars in fifth. The leading Porsche, that of Richard Westbrook, the one shared with Manuel Collard, will weigh down in sixth place. So the hopes that Porsche had for a wet race, which might have played into their hands, really haven't materialised.
Started very damp and very wet, but it's got progressively drier, and I still haven't seen the Scuderia Cos Ferrari out on track. It doesn't say it's in the pit lane, as you say. It owes us a pit stop, but
CR Scuderia car.
Sorry, Andrew. Yes,
that's all right. Stuart
last year,
will love the
creeping back.
publicity.
Yes, last year creeping back into 2008. The lights are off on the roof of the safety car, which means it goes in this lap. So when it reaches the pit lane entrance, it will dive off to one side, and then it's a rolling start. It's slightly different to the rolling start we saw. As soon as the race starts, you can start racing and you can overtake. From behind the safety car, you must cross the start-finish line before you overtake anybody. And so it'll be patience will be the watchword here, but you can see the dropping back.
There won't be much under those crash helmets. There'll be red mist aplenty, you can be sure. We've got about 13 minutes remaining, so something in the order of a 7-lap sprint race to finish this first 2-hour enduro in the FIA GTs for 2008. This is your leader. In goes the pace car. From now on, it's up to Philip Peter to make good his escape if he can.
On the gas early.
And away he goes.
But no overtaking, so everybody's got to be terribly well behaved until they go over the line. Masson already shaping up to have a go at Ryan Sharp in the Aston Martin. The Maserati's coming to the fore there. As you said, Graham, just before we got the safety car, huge mix of truly exotic machinery there. I don't know, £15 million worth of sports cars on this racetrack here this afternoon.
Michael Bartels it is in the one car, still needing to make his way past the 59 Porsche, the track speed car there, and before he can then pursue. And off has gone the number 5, Jean-Denis Delatraz, who was running down in the 6th position, having been passed by teammate Fabrizio Gollin. Let's see a replay of that. He's going to get tapped in. As the Maserati got out of shape there. That's the one car, is it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, the one car. So Michael Bartels are getting out of shape.
No, it's two.
I beg his pardon. It is indeed. Yes, it's Miguel Ramos, the 36-year-old engineer, getting out of shape, coming into Cox, and not able to control the car, using the Corvette a little bit as a brake, and sadly that's punted them both out of contention for the time being.
Philip Peter leads it for Gigawave in the number 10 Aston Martin, and then, according to our timing board, Javier Masson is ahead of Ryan Sharp. We saw him shaping up to do that, but we didn't see him actually do it. And then it's Michael Bartels in the number 1 Maserati, the survivor, in 4th place. And as Graham has said before, Gaston Mazzacane, one of the Argentinian ex-Formula 1 drivers in the series, because we're going racing in Argentina at the end of the year. That's round 10, and it's a long way away in November. It'll be a lot warmer in Argentina than it is here at Silverstone.
The GT2 and Cody has now made his second stop, so we'll wait to see how all that pans out. The gap from Philip Peter is now a gap back to Ryan Sharp again, and it's down to 1.3 seconds, a 1:49.7 versus a 1:51.2 for Philip Peter, so it's a second and a half taken out of that gap.
So this is the battle for the lead then. Aston Martin plays Aston Martin for the Royal Automobile Club's Tourist Trophy here at Silverstone. And this will be a good day for us if Aston Martin win it again. It would be an even better day for us, I suppose, if it was the 33 car, because that'll give us something to cheer for. Because we've got a British driver in that car in the shape of Brian Sharp, who's doing it at the moment.
Or do we cheer for number 10, which is the Gigawave team, which is a British team?
I know.
It's a win-win situation if you're a Brit at Silverstone this afternoon.
As long as they keep it clean and do not touch each other.
As if. Meanwhile, all of that has allowed Michael Bartels to close up towards the back of Xavier Marson, and you can see that gap on screen. There's the Corvette just going out of shot as we pan round and watch Michael Bartels coming out of club straight up towards the Abbey complex and closing under braking again. The Maseratis coming strong at the end of the race, as they so often do, but this time leaving it too late for a repeat of their success in the previous two tourist trophies. Incidentally, the first time that Maserati's name has ever appeared on the RAC Tourist Trophy in its 103-year history was 2 years ago, when the Vitaphone had their first victory here.
Yeah, it's fascinating that Maserati, with all their history in motorsport going back over the years, and is this a pass? Almost a pass there, but it didn't happen. And Philip Peter under lots of pressure from Ryan Sharp there, and Ryan Sharp isn't going to give it rest. He's going after it now as we go along the start-finish straight, heading towards the last corner, but I think the Gigawave car just got away from him a little bit there, and the gap has opened up. So heading down towards Maggots and Beckett, he is a few yards further back than he was. The onboard camera makes the car ahead look a lot further away than it is. Look at it there from outside, and you can see that he is still right on the tail of the number 10 car, and Ryan Sharp now knows that he's got to do something. We've got 8 minutes remaining, 8.5 minutes remaining, and he's right in the slipstream. He's right underneath the rear wing, and now dives out, but he is too far away, or is he? Goes for the inside. No.
Trying to outfox the Gigawave driver there, and not able to make it stick, but coming down the Vale. We promise you a sprint to the line, and this is going to be a real treat for the next 8 minutes as these two Aston Martins lock horns over the closing laps of the first round this year of the FIA GTs here at Silverstone. Conditions have been awful, the racing has been magnificent. Fabrizio Gollin, 1:47.4, gentlemen.
Here's a nervous looking team now. They're all happy to be on TV, and they're all happy their car is leading, but they've got Ryan Sharp right behind them, and they're heading up towards another good overtaking opportunity. But is he close enough? I don't think he is.
Closes up under brakes significantly, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So the setup on the Wendlinger Sharp car, clearly a very good one indeed. They finished second here last year, so they will be desperate to get one step further up the podium this year.
I think it's quite clear that Ryan Sharp could be quicker than Philip Peter if he didn't have him in front of him.
Pass, yes, and they've got the JMB Maserati MC12 up ahead of them. That won't present a problem, providing that Peter Kuterman is got his eyes open and is aware of what's going on around him.
And he's a lot closer actually now, coming out of Cops. He is a lot closer to the tail end than he was, but as you say, the Maserati now is holding both of them up.
This is going to be absolutely crucial that that Philip Peter chooses the right side to pass the Maserati and doesn't get boxed in behind it, because Ryan Sharp could well... Oh, it's Ryan Sharp who actually paid the penalty in the end, just jinking to the left and having to back off to avoid running into the back of the Maserati in pursuit. Talking of Maserati, here's another one. Come and join the party, Michael Bartels, courtesy of the race's fastest lap at a 1:47.2, and that's brought him right up into contention. Didn't we say just a few minutes ago that we'd left them a bit late to get into the hunt for this one? Let's think again.
Well,
Aston Maserati as close as that for the top step of the podium. This is 1, 2, 3 with 6 minutes and 10 seconds to go.
We've been saying Maserati come on strong at the end of the race, but they are coming on a lot stronger than expected. Michael Bartels is in contention for another victory here, and how happy would that make him? Gigawave, first outing in the championship, looking at their first win. They're certainly looking at a podium here Ryan Sharp and Carl Wendlinger in the Jet Alliance. Aston Martin in second place, looking at a potential victory, but now he's got Bartels and he's gone up the inside. Will he go round the outside and make it stick? Is this a pass for the lead? Has he done it? I think he has.
He's done enough for the moment.
Can he keep it? Bartels up the inside of Philip Peter.
Brilliant press coming through Luffield.
Stop it doesn't work. Ryan Sharp has
Peter
indeed taken the lead, and Philip Peter is elbowing Michael Bartels aside, but Bartels, I think, has got it. Watch him go past us now. I think you'll see a screen full of Maserati on the right-hand side. There it is. Michael Bartels up into second place, and now Ryan Sharp's got to keep him at bay for 5 minutes. Think about that, 5 long minutes.
And I wouldn't discount Philip Peter yet. He'll be ruefully watching the back of the Maserati disappear as we come back into a now somewhat becalmed Gigawave pit, and instead turn our attentions to this is the garage for Ryan Sharp's crew, and they will be rejoicing for the time being. But the gap is only a half second, and then 2/10 back to Philip Peter. The trio still together, but now we'll see the proof of the pudding. Can Ryan Sharp indeed pull away as Richard was threatening? It looks as though he can, but this is the next pair to come into contention as well. Xavier Marcin and Fabrizio Golin. Golin has been setting lap after lap as the fastest driver out there, and that's the result for him. He's up into 5th place, and the top 5 cars are all within one shot after nearly 2 hours of racing.
I'm just going to say, Golin wants a piece of this pie as well, doesn't he? Because he is looking for a podium finish here. So we've got 0.5, 0.8, 2.4 was the gap, but I think these two are closing up now, and there's nothing between them at all, is there? So Masson is under attack, but he's coming forward perhaps on the leading trio, and it's still the same order at the front: Sharp, Bartels and Peter. GT2, it's Bruni and Andrew Cacordi, but has he made his pit stop? He can't have done. Yes, he is.
Yes,
now
he
showing
has,
2
yes.
pit stops.
Yep.
So that's good for them.
Yes, and it looks as though this order is going to remain fairly static now, except that this 4th and 5th place battle is really on, because Golin has all the experience. Remember, please, that Xavier Marcin in the 3 car is in his first GT race ever.
He's been doing single-seaters and doing quite well, but he's never seen this before, has he?
No, this is all going to be very exciting for him and very new, and measure of the man that he's taken to it like a duck to water, and water plenty we've had this weekend, but the track is now principally dry. The cars are holding their lines much better. The times have come down by 15 seconds from what we saw at the start of the race per lap, and the result has been an amazing race with just 3 minutes to run now.
3 minutes on the countdown timer. There is the leader, there is 2nd place, there is 3rd place, there is 4th place, there is 5th place. This is proper racing, isn't it?
Ryan Sharp not content to sit on his laurels at the top of the field. Has just set the race's fastest sector time in sector 1, heading out again towards Stowe, that first timing point at the braking point for Stowe Corner. But this is the battle in the field at the moment between Fabrizio Golin and Xavier Marcin.
Well, let's think about those 2 minutes that are remaining on the clock and where we are on the racetrack. We are going to get 2 more laps out of this, I think, aren't we?
Yep, great racing all through the field, and in GT2 it's Jimmy Bruni from Andrew Cacordi at the moment. Here's another look up the inside from Golin, can't make it stick there at bridge. Be a very brave manoeuvre to go through there. That's a blindingly fast corner.
But Masson had his hands full of Corvette then. That thing was alive as he tried to fend off the yellow Corvette behind him. He is making a very good job of his first outing in sports car racing. Ryan Sharp, after 57 laps, is down in the 147s, and he's setting personal best times in the first sector. So as Graham says, he is not taking any chances with Michael Bartels, who was 1.9 seconds behind him going over the line last time. And I think they will have to do this lap and one other.
Yes, it's looking that way. Here is that battle rejoined again. There's absolutely no quarter given or asked between these two. The Corvettes, of course, both very similar, both C6R models, both ex-Pratt Miller Works cars from the US, brought over here to race in Europe, and racing is what these cars are all about. They've done so well.
Well, Massen's looking particularly strong, but Golin is looking very dangerous, I think, and I think it's only a question of time before he finds a little chink in Javier Massen's armour.
But time is running out. There's less than a minute to run, and still no way through for Fabrizio Golin. Sterling work being done by Xavier Massen.
What happens when the race leader goes across the line this time is if the clock still has time left on it, and I think it probably did, then he has to do another lap. As soon as the clock goes at 0, then the checkered flag will be shown to the leader the next time he comes round. So I think probably Ryan Sharp has started another lap.
More back markers in the way as the battle threads its way through Bridge Corner and up into the complex again. The yellow flag out as well, so no overtaking at this point. That'll frustrate the heck out of everybody.
There he goes.
And I wonder if so he's just letting go again. I wonder if they're still under yellow there. Here is the leader, Ryan Sharp, and Ryan Sharp is going to take the flag this time round.
Flashing the headlights, Aston Martin wins the Royal Automobile Club's Tourist Trophy. There's the checkered flag. Ryan Sharp for Jet Alliance Aston Martin. So we've got a home win in every sense of the word for Aston Martin and for Ryan Sharp. Michael Bartels, where did that come from? Second place in the Maserati. He won't be happy about it, but it's better than it was looking. Philip, Peter and Gigawatt ought to be delighted with third place. Now let's look at GT2. And this is going to be another win for AF Corsa, and it's getting metronomic, isn't it? After last year, they just reeled off win after win after win. Jimmy Bruni, who's the man in the car, is going to take the flag.
But up into the mix has come the new team, Chris Niarchos' CR Scuderia, with Andrew Kokodi at the wheel. Rob Bell, having taken the start in the 56 car, will come home second in class from Matteo Malicelli in the BMS Scuderia Italia car in third. So Ferraris all dominant in the GT2 category as they were last year.
And that's, of course, despite Porsche making quite a lot of changes over the winter, a lot of improvements. And this track, at least at the beginning, looking very good for them.
Yes, absolutely. Porsche have got a rejuvenated car, if you like, but this Silverstone isn't particularly a track that will suit them. We head next in a month's time to Monza, which is a track where the Porsche may well shine.
In the meantime, as Graham said, it's Ferrari in GT2. Jimmy Bruni, Andrew Cordy, and then Malicelli.
Just coming up to take the flag finally then. Here is Jimmy Bruni. Congratulations again. Gian-Maria Bruni. Congratulations to AF Corsa. No excitement there then. Great to see the enthusiasm of the teams coming across the pit lane and hanging over the walls to congratulate their drivers on the way through. They
won everything but Spa last year, I think, AF Corsa. You think they'd get used to it, but obviously it still has that special something, doesn't it? Wow, what a race.
Should we take a breath?
Well, how good is this for Aston Martin and for Ryan Sharp? He took over that car after Carl Wendlinger had led the race, spun it, and then recovered. And sterling work, fine drive from Ryan Sharp. Not sure if I'd say man of the match, because there are a lot of contenders for that on that racetrack, aren't there?
If there's a Driver of the Day award here, I would not want to be the judge, because there are far too many candidates who you would not want to leave out. But making the way back down pit lane and into Parc Ferme, where the cars will go through scrutineering again to make sure nothing has changed dramatically in their shape, size, appearance, weight and whatever else, all the rest from the start to the end.
You were saying Driver of the Day, and we said there's loads out there, but remember there's a lot of racing we haven't seen here today. We were following several races, but there's been a lot going on here, so there could be several candidates for Driver of the Day.
So the first three being drawn up underneath the podium. Out climbs Ryan Sharp. You can see the smile underneath the crash helmet. In fact, it only just fits underneath the crash helmet. So Ryan Sharp coming straight across to his team. There's Andrea Bertolini ready to greet Michael Bartels, who slams it on, pats the Maserati on the roof. Good girl, well done, he says. And well done it was indeed, because that was a sterling effort from Michael. And another huge grin. There's Bertolini giving him the congratulations that he deserves for a fine second half drive.
Very aggressive second half drive, very Michael Bartels.
The nature of the man, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely, but he's clearly delighted by his second place, although he would as always, take a win. But let's have a word with the winners, Carl Wendlinger, Ryan Sharp there with Anne Law.
Well done, guys.
No, thanks very much. Also, it's the first time I've got to finish the race. Carl normally does the winning, but no, we had some great calls on the strategy today, and the car worked fantastic the whole race, I think.
The beginning was hard.
Oh yeah, the first lap was very good. I got in the lead, and I could even put a little distance to the second car, but then I started to slide a little bit too early, and it was a big fight. Then I had a spin, which was a big mistake. Should not happen. So, but still we won, and I'm very happy.
Thank you. Well done.
He's right, shouldn't happen, should it? But Carl Wendlinger, as happy as he can be. Nice man, but he very seldom shows emotion.
No, absolutely.
And Ryan Sharp obviously delighted with that, as are we, because we've got exactly what we came to Silverstone for. We've got a home win for Aston Martin, we've got a home win for Ryan Sharp, and we've had 2 fantastic hours of very close racing.
Well, welcome back to Silverstone, where Ryan Sharp, Carl Wendlinger and Aston Martin have won the opening round of the FIA GT Championship, and with it that much coveted RAC Tourist Trophy. It was a brilliant last few laps, and I think we can see now the guys in Parc Fermé. They'll be making their way up to the podium as soon as they can. But it was a thrilling, absolutely thrilling last lap, where the number 10 car, the Gigawave car of Philip Peter and Alan Simonson, having made such a good call on the safety car, made such a good call on the safety car coming in, and having been the first team to put on slick tyres as the track started to dry out. Chris, congratulations, well done.
Thank you.
Just get a quick word with Chris Niarchos, boss of the CR Scuderia team, as we wait. Second in class for Kokori and Bell.
Yeah, I mean, a brilliant first start, obviously. Slightly disappointed. You know, we, I think, elected on the wrong tyres on both cars. We were on the harder compounds with the wets, with Andrew and Rob, and Tim and I were on the inters, and they were even more sort of precarious. But listen, for a first start and first win, or first event, we're really happy. I mean, to go away, both cars are in great shape, and we're in good shape for the championship.
Yeah, how tricky was it? I mean, in those opening few laps before a dry line appeared.
If anybody watched my video, pretty tricky actually. Yeah, I had a proper pirouette on the start, and it was just, the problem is the circuit just never got any hotter. So no matter what you did with the tires, I think of course they really got it right. They picked the soft compound, and that seemed to be the way to go. I mean, we thought it was going to be much harder. In the sense that we thought it'd dry and it would get slightly and the tires would come to us, and they did by the middle of the stint, but by then we were both sort of 20-30 seconds down. Andrew and Rob, again, did a great job to recover to where they got within touching distance, and then got punted around. Just innocent mistake by one of the other cars. But look, all in all, for a result, it's where we wanted to be, and to be on the podium second in our first event in this level, perfect.
Okay, Chris, thanks very much, and we'll go to the podium celebrations and rejoin our commentators.
Chris Niarchos there, speaking for Canada, as you heard. Wolfgang Kaufman on the left of your picture, and his teammate already on the podium. We saw their Corvette earlier on, and we saw it being lapped principally, but of course we have class winners out here this weekend, as well as the top 3. So they've had a good weekend, even if it was a slightly low-key one from our point of view. We were concentrating on all that excitement. And look, Andrea Bertolini, Michael Bartels, clearly very pleased with their second place. And they're not going to be quite as happy as the man on top of the podium with Carl Wendlinger and Ryan Sharp. And there, Carl Wendlinger, Ryan Sharp, Aston Martin wins that Royal Automobile Club Tourist Trophy. The Gigawave crew on the right-hand side of the podium, third place. Clever calls on the pit wall, but I think they lost it on speed in that terribly dramatic last few moments on those last few laps. National anthem of the winning team and driver. Round of applause from the crowd gathered at the foot of the podium. Surprisingly huge number of people here at Silverstone this weekend. You'd think that the weather would have put them off, but of course the motorsport season has been a long time coming back. This is the first race of the year. What a delight for Wolfgang Kaufman and Alex, the White Russian, Belarusian as he introduced himself the other day, to get on the podium at their first appearance. Tremendous third place for Alan Simonson and Philip Peter, both of those contenders for Driver of the Day awards. And what a performance too from Andrea Bertolini and particularly Michael Bartels in second place. That final session from Michael Bartels brought that Maserati up from where it had been all through the race, 5th or 6th, through a very close fought field to take second place. And then Ryan Sharp, of course, taking the trophy with Carl Wendlinger. Great first stint from Carl Wendlinger and a fantastic drive from Ryan Sharp to end it. And that truly was one of the contenders for Driver of the Day. So, as we've been saying, there are several people who could honestly claim that award, and I just think it's too difficult really to pick one person out of that crowd. Fantastic 2 hours of racing. And the Jet Alliance team down here, we're with them at the bottom of the podium. They're obviously delighted with that. Had a few wins and came on very strong at the end of last season to be one of 17 drivers, Carl Wendlinger and Ryan Sharp, battling for the GT1 crown at the final round of the season, and they were just a handful of points adrift and in second place. And they've started the new season in exactly the way as they ended the previous. And there is the trophy for Carl Wendlinger and Ryan Sharp. They've won the opening round of the FIA GT Championship, but they have also won the Royal Automobile Club's Tourist Trophy. Aston Martin's been on that before, of course. It's not the first time that Aston Martin has taken the title. But I think it's a first for Carl Wendlinger, and it's definitely a first for Ryan Sharp. A list of honourable names on that trophy: Sterling Moss, Denny Hume, Graham Hill, Nuvolari, and etc, etc. It is, of course, a roll call of motorsport history. Here's the messy bit, and as if it wasn't wet enough already at Silverstone. And as Carl Wendlinger, Ryan Sharp, Andrea Bertolini, Michael Bartels, Philip Peter and Alan Simonson spray the champagne, let's go back down to the soaked area of the track with Ted.
Yes, thanks very much. What a closing few laps that was. And if you like that, stay tuned for more. We have more GT racing next time at Monza, and that's in 4 weeks' time. And of course, don't forget the Formula One Spanish Grand Prix next weekend, live over on ITV1. But here at Silverstone, it's been Ryan Sharp, Carl Wendlinger and Aston Martin who've got their season off to a winning start. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Goodbye from us all.